So, could you give the viewers an idea of what a distributor actually is?
So the job of a distributor is quite simple. It's to get my film from me to as many viewers as possible. They might do this by sending it to various cinemas or printing DVDs and selling it in stores. But yeah, it's really up to them, how they do things and what works.
And what media institute might distribute your product and why?
Well, I really wanted to keep it, independent, because sending it to some big company just felt wrong, so I wasn't going to contact anyone from the big six, like Universal, Fox, Disney, Warner Brothers, Columbia, or Paramount. So these companies were really out of the question. And anyway, they're all big American companies, all with headquarters in LA. And I wanted to go for a company, a British company, that could empathise with the themes within my film. Also, it's logistically much easier. And so I began to search for the perfect independent company, and one that produces films quite similar to mine, but also one that produces films that I enjoy, because then I know the audience of that film company will enjoy my film. I looked through a huge range of independent British film companies and scanned through companies like Big Talk Productions and Cloud 8. And what I was doing was I was looking at the general genre and style of the films that they'd produced in the past, and whether or not I liked them, and I was thinking, would my film fit in with these? I managed pretty quickly to narrow it down to two companies, these being Film 4 Productions and BBC Films. Film 4 Productions is a company I really like, and it's owned by Channel 4 Television Corporation. Their productions include The Lobster, an independent comedy, and A Field in England, an independent drama. Not only are both these films disconnected from any of the big companies in film, but also, having watched them both, I was able to draw inspiration from them for my film. BBC Films has also produced a wide range of interesting independent films that fit my target audience, but I reckoned that Film 4 was a better fit. The cons of going independent, of course, are that it's likely I won't have such big success in the box office, and I'll definitely not compare with any big Hollywood films. But that's not why I'm in this business. So, Film 4 is great.
Throughout the planning, production, and post-production of this film, I've been thinking about how I could attract and address the audience in the most interesting ways possible. I'm really pleased with how the film turned out, as I think it shows through in the editing, camera work, and even the ideas you can see on screen. Let's go through it. Looking at other film production logos, I realised that my original was bland in comparison when considering sound and colour, and so I reanimated it with flashing reds to represent the light and blues to represent electricity. The sound I recorded of myself making pops with my mouth. Though it's not a big cacophony of orchestral sound, I think it does make a difference in making it more captivating. And anyway, I wanted it to fit with the feel of the rest of the film rather than be distracting. With this first shot, I wanted the audience to ask themselves questions like, where are we? Why are we on the floor? And why can we hear rain? Before anything else happened. That's why I leave the shot to run for some time before the boot comes in. A note to make about this specific shot is that it is the one I had to reshoot the most number of times. I wanted to get it just right to start off the film correctly, and so the splash had to be perfect. Also, the font I decided to use is Futura, which is a very simple but stylish font. I used it because it doesn't distract from the action, and it doesn't look cheesy. You might notice that plain fonts are commonly used in title sequences for the same reason. I've timed the main title and the rain animation with a sound of lightning. This not only highlights the film's title, but also explains the rain sound effect and readies the audience for the beginning of the film. The rain animation also tells the audience about the themes in the film, of weather and bad luck. I chose this shot to be first, as it's most visually pleasing in my opinion. The boot comes so close to the camera and the splash fills the screen, making it visually impressive for the audience. The proximity of the camera to the puddle also gives the action an element of surprise. Like the title and lightning, I've timed the splash to the first bells of the music. This, again, readies the audience for the beginning of the action, and also contrasts the intimidating movement with soft, effeminate bells. Throughout the whole film, I have tried to time the music with cuts and very significant actions on screen, but I'll get to them later. This next shot has the first special effect on the title. As the girl moves, the title comes out behind her. I've done this for the same reason I chose the font. It's so the title does not distract the audience from the action. This was a fairly elementary effect, as I've just used a radial wipe and animated its movement. Later on the effects get more complicated as I've got more confident with the program, but again, I will go over them when we get there. I've framed this shot so we can see the fall and reaction of the actor, as it is very funny thanks to the great acting. Keeping the continuity of the shot, the tent is empty because the character has only just put it up, hence why she's standing up, as she's just pegged a guy rope. I put this shot as wide as I could to really get a dramatic look. I've kind of used pathetic fallacy with the dark clouds to really contrast with how silly the shot really is. It exaggerates the fear in the character, but makes the splash that bit funnier. The width of the shot also captures the slow motion water in its entirety, which is visually pleasing for viewers. I've also put a radial wipe on the title in this one, but it is the water that goes in front this time. I also put the actor, myself, in centre frame to make the shot more satisfying to watch. I've done the same for this next shot, centralising the subject, which was especially important as there is less action to capture the audience's eyes, with the exception of the rain, which is not in any of the other shots. I've also made this shot shorter than the others, as it is more to build up to a final shot than to entertain on its own. By using a small variety of camera movements, it gives the film more variety, making it more interesting overall. This is just a pan that tracks the movement of the character in the sleeping bag. I wanted this tracking to highlight the movement, as it's the basis of the humour in the shot. As well as this, the girl opening the tent is timed so that she is in centre frame when it happens. I've timed the title in the shot to fade out just before the male character jumps into it. Again, this is so it doesn't distract from the action. I've framed this shot so the actor fills the screen. This is so the audience can't see what he's looking at, and so it's a surprise when he is hit by the ball. It's also quite funny when the impact knocks him off centre frame. And also I've timed the dramatic moment in the music with the ball hitting, which gives it more power. The title in this one disappears behind the ball as it passes. This effect is quite quick as it's not really meant to be noticed. The title has been placed so that it doesn't cover any of the action, and fades before it does, as to not take away from the shot. The props in the shot are probably the ones I gave most thought to, and give the scene humour in themselves. The muddy clothes and sodden suitcase tell the viewers a short story that they have to interpret from the character's emotion. I tried to capture the character's feelings of frustration by syncing the throwing of the shirt with the staccato in the music. I chose to keep this shot shorter, as once you've seen what's happening, there's not much more to see or figure out, and so it would be boring if I'd left it any longer. However, I still put some thought into the logic of the story, and so she's jumping, as she'd only be wearing one welly and the floor would be very wet. It's important to consider what's going on off-screen, as the audience will be trying to figure that out at all times. The reason I put it in the place I did is because the flowing of the music fits with the flowing of the water and heightens the effect. This next shot is probably the most odd, as there is no actors and it's set at night. However, this is good in the way that it gives the film even more variety and keeps the audience excited for the next scene. The title in this shot vanishes as the marshmallow explodes, highlighting the blast, as it's almost as if it's blown the title away. Again, I have tied it with the staccato of the music, as it gives the flash more of an impact. From the footage I had of these guys putting away the tent, I tried to find the most interesting parts, excluding the very end. I reckon that this mirrored movement of the actors was quite eye-catching, and so that's why I've used it here. Again, this shot is shorter, as it's more to build up for the last shot, rather than to be independently entertaining. This one is also to set up a future shot, but I've left it for longer as there's more on the frame to see. The audience doesn't know this, however, and so they'll spend the duration of the shot figuring out what will happen, only to be surprised when not much does. This makes it the more satisfying when we see the same scene at the end. The movement of the actor is loosely timed with the music, giving each strike of the matchbox more of a frustrating effect. The actor in the background is simply to enhance the emotions of the man trying to light the fire, and to give the character more pressure in the story to get the fire started. I gave this shot a certain depth by placing the foremost character to one side, and the character coming from behind is to the other. I've tried to give the same attention to framing in all of the shots, but this one is especially effective in making an interesting viewing experience. The special effect I have done to the title in this one is also the most advanced. I've used a garbage mat to mask parts of the title where the actor's legs pass. This makes it look as if the character is jumping over the title and is quite stimulating to watch. We'll see the same effect again later. I chose to give it the longest duration because it fits with the music and the slow rising of pitch as the character in black gets closer and closer. The payoff is more humorous than if I'd not left it for that long. This is a reoccurrence of the scene earlier. The action in the scene is comparatively longer and therefore needs to be broken up to maintain the established pace. The shot, as with many others, cuts before the end of the action, giving the film a dynamic pace. The mise-en-scène of this shot is both a reminder of the camping theme as well as a comic device. As I've previously established a theme of bad luck, the neatly laid table in the foreground acts as a signifier to the impending mishap, allowing the audience to enjoy the moments before these mishaps, as well as the mishaps themselves. This serves to heighten the humour of the viewing experience. The subsequent shot is another good example of this. There was that garbage mat again. As the music builds to a crescendo, I've used a shot that has a slow suspenseful build and a particularly climactic end. The end is emphasised by having a character anticipating the main action in parallel with the audience. The timing of the final title with the visual and cinematic climax addresses the audience, as it's an acknowledgement of the end of the chapter, which is why this shot is another surprise.